What will the Minnesota Vikings offense look like in 2025? We've had a lot of different conversations about JJ McCarthy, about the run game, the offensive line. Well, now it's time to kind of put everything together and have a real in-depth discussion. We're going to do a nice in-depth preview of the Minnesota Vikings offense going to training camp, as at this time next week, the quarterbacks and rookies will have already reported, as they do on the 20th, and the veterans on the 22nd. We're almost there, guys. It's getting real close. Welcome to the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. My name is Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner is producer Dave. Dave, we're so close. The Vikings will be practicing 12 days from now, and publicly. So anybody can go attend. It's getting real exciting. And I got to tell you, I am absolutely thrilled that we're getting this close. It's tremendous.
Mm-hmm. I was talking on the Fans First football show last night. Came out across the Fans First Sports Network's feed this morning. That I was surprised. Believe it or not, they're about half the teams report this week to camp, and then the other half on the 20th to 22nd.
Yeah. So I know the Chargers have already fully reported, but they also play in the Hall of Fame game. So
same with the
that's
Lions.
part of the reason. Yeah, it's exciting. And
I can't wait.
We can only talk about things so much, and we can only talk about JJ McCarthy so much. We're going to talk a little bit about him today, but it's going to be from an angle we really haven't discussed much. And let's just start off with JJ McCarthy, and we'll go through the entire offense. And the one thing that is going to be really interesting is, how is his start going to look? And I think we can look back at how Sam Darnold's first start looked. They were not afraid to throw the football. They were not afraid to just run pretty much the majority of their playbook. They were just, hey, you're the guy. We're going to run our offense, and we're not going to really hold back at all. I think things might be a little different for McCarthy. I think, for lack of a better term, I think they might hold back a little bit. And that's because McCarthy has never played in an NFL game before. We can talk about preseason. That's not an NFL game. That's not what we're talking about. And one of the reasons I say they might hold back is part of their offseason strategy was to beef up the run game. And I think that, quote unquote, holding back is mainly going to be focused on, we are going to run the football, and we're going to make it a focus of running the football. And the absolute best thing you can do for a quarterback is, one, have a great defense, two, run the ball and be successful at it, because both of those things will take a lot of pressure off of their shoulders. There are going to be times where he's going to have to bear the whole weight of that. But if you can limit those times until he really gets settled in and he gets a few games under his belt, that is when things can really take off. And one of the reasons why I kind of like the week 6 bye, after really thinking about it, because after 5 weeks, McCarthy can sit down, look at everything, and then they can start to make changes. You're probably not going to get a lot of mechanical changes. That's not what that's going to be for. It's going to be procedural changes. It's going to be schematic changes. It's going to be, I really like running this against this, and here's why. I don't like running this in this situation. Here's why. And they can sit down and have a really in-depth conversation about some of those things. It's harder to do that in the course of the season when you don't have extra time, because so much of your time is already structured and segmented. So being able to have those 5 games, get them done with, for lack of a better term, is going to be really key to helping him take that next step and continue to grow throughout the course of his rookie year. So those first couple games, don't be surprised if you're seeing a ton of play action, if you're seeing a ton of just running the football, a ton of gimmicks per se. And I think that's going to be really important to helping him develop. Taking that pressure off of him. If you can have the Giants game from last year as your first game against the Bears, where it felt like a breeze, you had a Van Ginkel pick six. Now, the Vikings did turn it over. I can't remember who fumbled. I think it might have been CJ Ham fumbled on the second possession inside the red zone, and then that ended up in a field goal real quick. But they were able to come back from that, and it was pretty easy in doing so. I think being able to figure that out with McCarthy is going to be such a huge deal. And this isn't necessarily me saying I don't believe in McCarthy. This isn't the team saying that. The whole goal is to make him successful long term. One of the easiest ways to destroy a quarterback is to destroy their confidence. Put too much on them right away. Put them in situations where they can and will fail. Remember, I will never forget this. The 1998 quarterback class, Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. It feels so easy of a decision in hindsight that Peyton Manning was the guy and Ryan Leaf wasn't. Manning had the pedigree. Manning had the great college career. But here's the thing. Ryan Leaf was immensely more talented when it came to his arm, when it came to how he could attack the field. And there was a real debate in 1998. This is especially if you go and watch the Heisman documentary about the 97 Heisman race that talks about this. It was a real discussion. Do you take Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf? And Ryan Leaf busted out real quick. But one of the reasons he busted out was they put him in situations to fail. And it destroyed his confidence. He never got it back. There was that clip of him yelling at a reporter in the locker room. And him screaming like, "Don't talk to me like that, man. Knock it off." Everybody's seen the clip. But you destroy somebody's confidence. You may never get it back. I think it was 99 or 2000. The 49ers drafted quarterback Giovanni Carmazzi out of Hofstra. And they loved the idea of him. He was mobile. He had a great arm. He was a lefty. Kind of gave him some vibes of Steve Young, even if it wasn't a one-to-one comparison. His NFL career was pretty much over when he got hit once in the preseason. And then they realized, this guy's doesn't have it. And those kind of things matter. You want to try and isolate him from those things early. And this isn't even to say that JJ will be hurt by those things. The thing is, it's not to identify whether they can be destroyed by those things or not. It's to prevent them from happening in the first place. Peyton Manning still holds the record for most interceptions in its season by a rookie. It will never be topped. Why? They knew Peyton Manning could handle failure. They knew he could handle starting an entire season and being bad because of what his mental makeup was. So, and I've said this before, I will not try to comment on what McCarthy's mental makeup is because I don't know. But what the Vikings need to do is know what that mental makeup is, know what he can handle, know what they can throw at him, and then once they figure that out, give him less. Let the first couple games be quote unquote easy in comparison to a normal game because he's going to be on prime time his first two starts, and the whole nation's going to be watching to see if McCarthy's the real deal. If he stinks it up against the Bears, we are going to know that, one, it's a divisional rival. Two, it's week one. Weird things always happen week one. And three, weird things especially happen when Minnesota plays games at Soldier Field. We've seen it for decades. It's not going to matter to the national media. And the second that McCarthy stinks, you're like, oh, they should have got Rodgers. Oh, they should have kept Darnold, especially if Darnold is a great week one. So the key is going to be just helping McCarthy every single way you can. And I think that's going to start with the run game. Get Aaron Jones involved early. Get Jordan Mason involved early. We have an actual moving company on the front of the offensive line right now. Move people. Create holes. Turn a 5-yard gain to an 8-yard gain because you have an extra foot of power to be able to move a player. Those are the kind of things that are going to help him the most. And then when he gets to those high leverage situations, which he was objectively really good at when he was at Michigan, those 3rd and 8s, then you can be like, okay, do your best. Try and figure it out. But you want to make sure that you can try to avoid him being in 3rd and 18. Do the little things. Help him. That's going to be how I'm going to look at things for the first couple weeks. Then I think by week 3, he'll have played a road game. He'll have played a home game. He'll have been through the process for a couple of weeks. Then I think is when you start to like take some of the training wheels off, for lack of a better term. You utilize that to maximize what you've got. And I do think the Vikings will be in a very good spot for the most part when it comes to being able to maximize what McCarthy is. But the key for me, Dave, as I kind of wrap up this point, insulate him as best you can and make it so he does not have to bear the load for the first few weeks. Make the game as easy as possible for him. And then as he continues to show you more in live game reps, not in practice, live game reps, put more on his plate. And as you do that, you will build his confidence and you will feel a lot more comfortable long term, because we think Super Bowl this year. But this isn't a 1-year play. You are trying to set this guy up to be your franchise quarterback for 10 to 15 years, if not longer.
It's called a dynasty play.
Well, let's focus on getting 1 before we get 12. Because we've been there.
From your lips to Odin's ears. Now you worry about his makeup as a pro, and that you don't know what his mindset's going to be. I suggest from his past, learning from his past, his mindset's pretty good. Whether it be in high school,
now,
IMG, Michigan.
I think it's important to note that we
His rehab.
We can hypothesize based on what we've read, but we don't know because we haven't talked to him and we're not in the building. So that's my approach to it, because I don't want to speak with certainty on something that I cannot be certain about, which is why I've taken the more ambiguous approach.
Well, if A to Z ever gets you your credentials.
Well, I can tell you it is not an A to Z problem. They are working very hard to make it happen. It's just a difficult process.
Then you could have on the record and off the record conversations with JJ McCarthy to learn his mindset.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see the growth of JJ McCarthy. And I'm going to be looking at it from the prism of how much he's asked to do and how much they're choosing to limit him. It's not going to be limit because they know he can't do it. It's going to be limit because we don't want to put all this pressure on you. You have a great team around you. Use your teammates. That's how I'm going to be approaching the look at it from that perspective. It's all about trying to figure that aspect out. And I do think that there's some really, really interesting ways we can look at that. Screen passes are going to be an easy way to get the ball out. How much is Kevin O'Connell going to attack the middle of the field from that 10 to 20 yard mark? That's going to be the big telling point for me. They loved to throw the ball downfield with Sam Darnold. Will they love it just as much with McCarthy immediately?
Or will it focus to across the middle?
It's going to be interesting to see how they attack vertically initially, because I do think the ideal version of the offense is very similar to what Sam Darnold did. They want to attack vertically. They want to attack over the middle, and they want to put pressure in that sweet spot, that 10 to 20 yard in between the numbers, because that is where you win games. Everybody throws outside the numbers. It's harder to do that. It's way more rewarding to do that when you throw over the middle, even though it can be just as difficult, if not more. And that's why you see guys like McVay always attack over the middle. Ben Johnson, Kyle Shanahan. That's where the money is made. That's where you take advantage. And I'm really, really intrigued to see how it's maximized. But how they utilize McCarthy early on is going to be really, really interesting. And it's not going to be from a perspective that they think he'll fail. I believe they think he's going to be an incredible success. But it starts with how you treat him in the beginning and how you manage that pressure, that workload, and how much you ask him to do. And I think how much they ask him to do based on situations is going to be very telling on where they think he's at right now. And I'm very, very intrigued. Those first two games, the All-22 is going to tell us a lot, Dave.
Part of it is going to be chemistry on the O-line. How well does that come together?
Mm-hmm. And that's going to be an interesting thing. I kind of want to reach out to some people and ask, because I wonder how much Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, having played together and having chemistry together, if that could be viewed as a negative for getting chemistry throughout the entire line together. Now, let me kind of explain. You're implementing two guys onto a unit that have already played together, onto a brand new unit. So they already know each other's ticks. They already know their intricacies. But at the same time, do they know? They have to now figure out how everybody else works. It's not one person coming in. It's two. And how does that complicate things? It's easier if one guy comes in because one guy's acclimating to everybody else. Now you have two guys acclimating. And one of the reasons why I said I didn't think the Vikings were going to replace all three starters on the interior of the offensive line was because now you have three guys trying to figure things out on the interior. You don't have a lot of padded practices. You don't have a lot of opportunities to be able to have that external communication. You don't have, Christian Darrisaw is barely going to practice next to Donovan Jackson. Donovan Jackson is going to practice next to a guy who's never called this offense before, never set the protections. And the guy to his right is his equal as far as they already have chemistry, but he's also never been on this offense and never had the protection calls shouted out. And then you have Brian O'Neill, who's a consummate pro, but he's having to deal with somebody who's brand new to him too. So there could be a lot of chemistry issues on this offensive line. And I think it'd be interesting to get a NFL's offensive lineman's perspective on some of this to figure out how the chemistry could end up making an impact. Because talent-wise, this is a great unit. Talent don't mean shit if you don't have chemistry, though. You got to be able to learn each other, understand when you have to help, how to pass things off. And that was something that the offensive line last year just did not do a good job of. Passing things off, external communication. And we could see...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We could see some real struggles early on, and I don't think that's being talked about enough. I think it's a very interesting discussion point because we just don't know. There's so much we don't know. Now, it could also mean Kelly, nothing. Though. They could just figure it out and everything's easy peasy. Mm-hmm. But it could be an issue.
But I think Kelly is the key, and he's enough of a veteran and highly spoken of by offensive line gurus that he could orchestrate that chemistry coming together.
Mm-hmm. I think so too, but it's also really hard, Dave, for him because you're asking a guy who's never played with this offense to organize the chemistry. And even he's a veteran, he's 32 years old. He was a first round pick. That's still a big ask for him.
Yeah, but he played on some bad offensive line teams for the Colts
Mm-hmm.
and had to learn from it. So yes, he's new to the O'Connell system. How quickly he spins up will be key. Working with JJ McCarthy will be key. But also, with teaching Jackson, having Fries on the other side, communicating with the tackles, the whole works is going to be key. And that's what I'm going to be looking for in those first 2 games as well. Not just how JJ does, but how the offensive line does. Because if they come together quickly, then the running game comes together. Then the passing game comes together. And you talk about alleviating a whole bunch of pressure off of young JJ McCarthy's shoulders. I think we got the right people to do it. Let's see it happen.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm going to be very, very, very curious how they end up maneuvering with this offensive line, because there are a lot of positives and improvements, but for right now, chemistry is going to be a really, really big, for lack of a better term, concern, because we just don't know how things are going to look. And I'm going to be keeping tabs on it throughout the course of the entire offseason.
I don't know if you saw today, I saw it from Alec Lewis, but they posted a clip of JJ McCarthy throwing to his tight ends.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
It was great. Gotta love it. Build up that chemistry. Build out the love.
You know what else I'm building up, Dave?
What's that?
I'm building up my wins on Underdog Fantasy.
Ooh.
Right now there's not a whole lot to go on. If you want to have some fun tonight, Home Run Derby, baby. Byron Buxton, he's up there. But I've been playing a lot of Canadian Football League. I love the CFL. The Rouge is one of my favorite things. If you don't know what the Rouge is, you can score a single point. All kicks have to be returned. All punts and all missed field goals. And if you don't get them out of the end zone, or you kick the ball through the end zone, it is a point. And it rules. And it creates different strategy elements where teams will just take a knee so they can get the field position instead of risking the ball being inside the 10, and they'll just surrender a point. It's a lot of fun. It's a different brand of football, which is why it's better than the UFL with a similar talent pool. You're playing the same game, but it's got different rules and different ways to be exciting with 12 players and a 20-yard wider field. I love the CFL. And if you would have joined the play that I shared on Twitter over this past weekend, you would have won 3.5 times your money on a flex play and 7.9 times your money on a standard. Bo Levi Mitchell under 322 yards. Kenny Lawler and William Stanback both with over 0.5 touchdowns. And we're going to do it again this weekend. And my Blue Bombers are back in action against the number 1 team, the Calgary Stampeders. It's going to be a really fun one. The only thing you have to do, live in one of these states and use the promo code FORNO, FORNO, for up to $1,000 in bonus credits on your first deposit. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to enjoy sports over the course of the off season and during the season. But just remember, if you're having too much fun, 1-800-GAMBLER is your number. I got to tell you, I love me some CFL, Dave. You should watch the CFL. It's a good time.
Well, it sounds it. I know Darren gets into it.
I'm guessing he's a Calgary fan because Yellowknife, I think, is pretty close to Calgary, right? It's in Alberta,
Possibly.
right?
But you got to remember, he grew up on the East Coast of Canada, so he may be
that's a good
favoring
point.
a team over there.
Well, you got the Montreal Alouettes, the Toronto Argonauts, the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and the Ottawa Red Blacks. Ottawa is a weird one. They keep the franchise keeps going in and out over the course of the last few years, so it's like.
But he may be a Blue Bomber fan because of Bud Grant.
Hey, that's how I became a Blue Bomber fan. That's why I picked him. Plus, their star running back Brady Oliveira rescues dogs, and well, go rescuing dogs. Adopt, don't shop. So let's continue to talk. There's one thing that is really intriguing to me, Dave. How are the Vikings going to use their third tight end this year? Last couple of years, there's been Johnny Munt. They felt very comfortable playing him 10 to 20 snaps a game. He's the best third tight end in the league. It gave you the ability to rest somebody like TJ Hawkinson a couple extra snaps. Because if you have Munt on the field, you're okay. I mean, look, he's not great. He's not going to be a starter in Jacksonville. He's a good, solid player. Now it's 3 rookies that are fighting for that number 3 spot. 6th-round pick Gavin Bartholomew, who was hurt for minicamp, and then undrafted free agents Ben Urasek and Bryson Nesbitt. Dave, those are not options that you want to see get regular snaps immediately unless they prove something in training camp. So here's my theory. I think that we're going to see more CJ Ham. I think the snaps that you're going to give to that third tight end are going to be CJ Ham snaps. And you'll use him in more of an H-back kind of role, a traditional fullback. You're not going to see him line up as a traditional tight end very often. But in the run game, hey, maybe he motions into like a flex tight end where he's just off the line of scrimmage and he's like on the hip bone of the other tight end or the offensive tackle. I think it's a very interesting idea to have CJ Ham out there because he's a veteran you can trust. I can trust that CJ Ham is going to be really good. I can trust that Ham is going to be a steady figure for the Minnesota Vikings. Do I have that same trust with Gavin Bartholomew, Ben Urasek, or Bryson Nesbitt? No. And I think that's where the conversation kind of deviates. I think Ham is going to be that guy where he's going to get some of those snaps and he's going to, he's already proved his worth to the team. His worth is on special teams. His worth is leadership. So when he's making a little over $1 million or $2 million, it's not that big of a deal because he's giving you so many intangibles. But now you can figure out ways to use him on offense more. Kevin O'Connell traditionally does not use a fullback, but Ham's in a different realm. And I do think that it's a very interesting potential here for Ham to get more snaps because there is no tight end 3.
Yep. Hey, I just worry about his age. But yes, you're right. He is steady. And obviously he was greatly appreciated by KOC because he kept him around.
Mm-hmm. All right. Dylan has a question about Darrisaw being out the first half of the season. Are we sure he's going to be out the first half of the year? Are we sure about that? I don't think he's going to be out the first half of the year. I think he's going to be out 2 to 4 games. So there is a difference between him and
week 1.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about the Darrisaw timeline because I do think this is an interesting talking point. If he doesn't start just in school, he's probably going to be the best swing tackle we've had here since Rashad Hill. I'm not going to call him great, but I think he's going to be really solid and he's going to be like Cam Robinson replacement level kind of stuff. So Darrisaw suffered his injury on October 24th. I believe he had surgery on November 1st, or it was shortly thereafter. It did not take long. Even though he had damage to the MCL, Hawkinson had to wait a month for that swelling to go down. Darrisaw didn't. So Darrisaw had his surgery at the beginning of November. If you go by the 9-month timeline, now remember, using Adrian Peterson as a comparison point now, just don't do it. Adrian Peterson is a medical marvel. He is a freak of nature. And I say that in an incredibly complimentary way. He tore his ACL on Christmas Eve and started week 1 at the beginning of September. That's barely over 8 months. So Darrisaw, week 1, September 8th, will be over 10 months post-surgery. 9 months is kind of that benchmark. Hey, we can start having that conversation. This regime is notoriously conservative. They waited over 10 months for TJ Hawkinson. It was almost 10 months for TJ Hawkinson. It was like 9.5 because his first start was, I believe, against Jacksonville. It was either Jacksonville or Tennessee at the beginning of November. He had his surgery on January 26th. So that in itself, on being on the 9th of November, that's a pretty significant gap. But they could have played him earlier. They didn't feel like they had to, and they didn't want to risk it. With Darrisaw, you can easily argue that he's more important, which I think he is more important than TJ Hawkinson. I also think he's a better player than TJ Hawkinson. But where things really come into play is how are they going to want to push it? How are they going to want to make Darrisaw come out and be that guy, Dave? I think that's really interesting. I think it's going to be a fascinating one to look at as we continue to move forward throughout all of training camp when Darrisaw sees that first start. I do think Darrisaw getting his first start week 1 probably doesn't happen, but I would bet week 3 against the Bengals is probably that first point where, like, okay, I think he'll be on the roster. I don't think he's going to get the 4 games of PUP because, like, coming out in mandatory mini camp, that was just a planned thing. He only did individual drills. He didn't do any like major team stuff. They wanted to see how the knee would react in person. That's why he didn't come out the next couple of days. I really do think Darrisaw is going to play before the bye. And it's because of how well he's attacking his rehab. All reports are that rehab is going well. We're not seeing any setbacks. And with the torn ACL, he's going to be plenty of time removed from it. So I don't think he's going to miss half the season. I would be shocked if he doesn't start before the bye week. But with this regime, starting week 7 with his first game, Dave, not the craziest thing in the world because they have been super conservative with how they treat their guys when it comes to injuries.
Gotcha. My frowns are because internet took a dive there for a bit.
Oh, I know.
Which happens at this time of the evening for some reason.
Odie, I can't believe you would do that. How dare you?
It's not Odie's fault. Unless he farted.
Okay.
That may have affected spectrum way down here.
He has not farted yet today that I have noticed. Thank goodness. He actually puked like 4 times Saturday night. And I'm like, dude, what is going on? And then he was fine the next day. Frenchies are a wild ride, man. They're a wild ride. One of the last things I wanted to talk about here is Jordan Addison's suspension.
Likely.
Yes.
Tentative.
Tomorrow is his court date. The likely suspension is coming, but they don't do suspensions until the cases are essentially closed. And they're going to wait until the court process is done. And then even so, whatever the court decides doesn't necessarily impact the suspension itself. They just wait until that process is done before they close their end of the investigation. So I believe Addison's going to get suspended for 3 games, which would be at the Bears, at home against the Falcons, and at home against the Bengals. Now, with those games, the one that'll hurt the most is the Bengals, because Justin Jefferson's going to want to beat Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. They haven't been here since the Teddy Bridgewater return game in 2017. And it's going to be a really, really interesting game to see how things end up working out for this team against that kind of offense. One thing that's going to be really interesting is how are they going to factor in the suspension? And I think we can point to weeks 2 and 3 last year, Dave, where Addison missed both of those games and he missed most of the game against the Giants, but they didn't game plan to not have Jordan Addison. And I think that's the key differentiating factor here. Game planning to have a player versus having to adjust on the fly without them because they got hurt are different. So they're going to have Jalen Naylor. They're going to have a healthy TJ Hawkinson, which they did not have last year without Addison. They destroyed the Texans, who won the AFC South without Hawkinson and Addison. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Mhm.
Just bonkers stuff. I think that game they also didn't have Dallas Turner. So an incredible performance by that Vikings team to win 34-7 and honestly just obliterate them. But I do wonder how they're going to adapt without Jordan Addison. And my thinking is they're going to run a lot of 12 personnel. They're going to run the ball. They're going to use Hawkinson and Oliver. Because remember, we don't think of Oliver as a really good receiver at tight end. But that's how he got drafted. And they did use him as a receiver with Hawkinson out. But that significantly shrunk when Hawkinson came back. I think you can utilize Oliver up the seam in short routes. He's got a really thick base, and when he catches the ball, he's tougher to bring down. He can box out. I think you're going to see a lot more of that 12 personnel, Jalen Naylor as your second wide receiver. Third, who the heck knows who that's going to be at this point? Likely either Rondale Moore or Ty Felton in this specific scenario. But I think that's going to be a really, really big thing for the Vikings early on, because not having Addison, oh, buddy, that stinks. That stinks. And the only game where I'm really concerned about it is the Bengals, because the Bengals have that offensive firepower. But that defense is vulnerable, and not having Addison, because remember, when the Vikings played them in 2023, Addison torched them. It was like six or eight catches for 100+ yards and 2 touchdowns. Just beat them up. Not having him will stink. And as I look at things, I think how they handle the suspension is going to be really key to their early season success, because they're going to have to figure out a way to replace him. And I think going back to those 2 games where they did not have TJ Hawkinson either, and figuring out how they manage the offense is going to be a big factor in trying to project that forward. Because Darnold at that point, we didn't know what we had. We didn't know he was great. We didn't know he's going to have this magical season. You had one good performance. Cool. Sam Darnold's had him before. I'm not moved. Second good performance. Okay. Hey, Kevin O'Connell's done a great job, but I'm still not moved. Third one, it's like, okay, now we got to really take this seriously. We're now in a trend. And I think with McCarthy, we're going to see early on not having Addison could end up being a really big deal. So I think this is where running the football is going to come back into play. And Dave, I'm just getting real excited for what this offense is going to look like. I can't wait to break down the all-22. I can't wait to have conversations, and it's going to be a great time.
Could we see, instead of bringing on a third wide receiver, have 2 running backs on the field at the same time? Mason and Jones?
I think so.
As a possibility.
The pony package is an interesting one. I don't know how they view Mason as far as a pass catcher, though. Mason is more of a thumper.
Well, and you keep Mason in the backfield and you put Jones out.
Well, that kind of takes away some of the idea of the pony package. I think that might come in with like a CJ Ham, because like pony package is going to be like Saquon Barkley and Aaron Jones. Like that would be the idea, where you have 2 guys who can be really good, viable pass catchers. And I think 21 personnel is your most lethal personnel if you have the right running backs, because they can attack linebackers and make their lives hell. And if you put a smaller group where you have like nickel or dime in there, then they can just run over you, and the defensive backs can just get absolutely hammered by these offensive linemen who just block them to Texas. So I'm very interested to see how they maneuver it. I don't know how they view Jordan Mason as a pass catcher, a third down kind of guy. I think we're not going to get that answer until a few games in, when we start to kind of look at third down splits, how often they use a guy like Jordan Mason in those situations. Because I think Aaron Jones is going to be in a lot of those situations. Will they want to trust both those guys on the field together? I think it's a good question. I don't know. That's going to be something I'm going to kind of lock down and see, okay, how is this going to work? How is this going to change? And that's one of the reasons why this is fun. This team is very similar to last year and still so different.
Well, how do you think tomorrow's going to go?
I don't know. I don't have the information from the discovery phase, which is where both sides hand over evidence. They introduce witnesses, all that kind of stuff. Based on the information we have, I think it would be hard for him to be pronounced not guilty. I think he'll probably end up being guilty of some charge. There always is the possibility up until the trial actually starts, or even during the trial, where they come to an agreed upon settlement. But my guess is if Jordan Addison is going to trial on something like what feels pretty cut and dry, that they know something that we don't. And that is going to come out in the trial. And then we'll end up hearing about it. Because
they go in tomorrow and the judge could have other things on his mind and go, hey, we're going to postpone this 4 months.
It's possible, but my guess is because it's already been a year that won't happen. It could, but I'm guessing it's not gonna. We'll see. When it comes to the legal system, as Kevin Garnett screamed after winning his first NBA title, anything is possible.
You got that right.
But yeah, that is our show. Some chat about Teddy Bridgewater in the comments. He did get suspended as the head coach of Miami Northwestern High School earlier today. He went on a Facebook Live and asked for help providing for some of these kids. And it was just like, because he was spending, he said, $700 a week in Uber rides, $2,200 a week in team meals. And I think it was like $1,300 a week in like health care for the players. So it's like almost $4,500 a week, just extra.
And it doesn't include having the field lines painted because they were in desperate need of being painted and the school system couldn't afford it.
Mm-hmm. And he was footing the bill. And apparently he was footing the bill as like a booster before that. But if he's not head coach, he's like, I'm still going to do it. These kids deserve it. So it's unfortunate. Kind of having had conversations with people, it sounds like that the Florida High School Association kind of stinks. They're going after the wrong people for the wrong things when other schools are apparently openly recruiting, and it's like a wild west out there. So this is just unfortunate. It just harms the kids.
And I think their logic is it's a recruiting tool. Well, I think he wants to have the best football team possible and take care of the kids.
He's just paying for he's paying for Uber rides, like athletic massages, and team meals. He's not buying these kids PS5s. He's not giving them handfuls of cash. He's just doing what he thinks is the right thing. And I understand that you have to have rules in place, but punishing for that, it just feels so wrong. It really does. I hate it.
The school should be paying for the transportation, but hey.
Yeah. They has no money. And it sucks. But that is our show. Thank everybody for joining. Make sure while you're here, you like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And if you're listening on podcasts, we love you just the same. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well so you get all of our stuff. We'll be back on Thursday night, Dave, to do a preview of the defense. Talk about some of the big things to look at from that perspective. Then next week, training camp. It's getting here. It is exciting. I know the dogs are not going to be very happy because I will be gone more, but I will have stuff to bring to you. If I do go to training camp, there may be some revised scheduling for the Real Forno Show. So please be aware of that, because if I'm going, there is more and more traffic on 494 because of construction. So, and it's just a straight shot. It's over an hour to get to my house with no traffic. With the construction traffic, it may be brutal. So
it's that season.
Please be
Mosquitoes
aware
and
of
orange
that.
barrels. Yep. Now, Wednesday. What's happening Wednesday?
I don't know. You tell me. Are you hosting Who Will Be King?
Vikings versus SKOL is hosting Who Will Be King, your NFC North roundup, and the Detroit Lions are in training camp already, so we'll have some real football talk as we pick on them, and of course the rest of the two other teams in the division, the Bears and the Packers, especially the Packers. We hate the Cheezers.
Yeah. We hate the Packers. I hate the Packers so much that my brain just got foggy and I just forgot what to say. But yeah, we're a lot of good stuff coming. We're going to have a lot of really cool stuff throughout the course of the regular season, and you won't want to miss it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone.